What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
Miller.
And we have an album review for you. And yeah, it's not really a metal album, but it's one of those where I don't care because I really like this band. And, you know, they're one of those weird bands where, like, the metalheads kind of invited them in. Like, they were billed as, like, alternative metal or stoner metal or what the fuck ever. And maybe it was arguable at first, not so arguable now, but we still just like, hey, you know, let's keep them in there because they're kind of fun to party with.
And we've mentioned multiple times.
Definitely.
A huge influence, not only us, but a lot of people.
Absolutely. So we're going to go over the latest offering from Queens of the Stone Age, In Times New Roman. This comes out also on the 16th of June on Matador Records. It's been formed in 1996 in Seattle, Washington. Pretty much from the ashes of Kyuss. This was Josh Homme's project after Kyuss went their separate ways. This is their 8th album overall and first one in 6 years. It's hard to believe that Villains came out 6 years ago because I still listen to the shit out of that.
That's crazy to think about. But you got to factor in like the COVID thing where it's like 2 years are gone.
Yeah,
so I mean, like 4 years. It's not too bad for now.
2020 just didn't fucking happen as far as I'm concerned.
Well, 21 even too.
Yeah, well, at least half of 21. I went to shows again after that. And there's some reasons why there was a delay, and we'll get into that. But, I mean, for those that don't know, stoner rock, stoner metal, alternative metal, I don't know, it's one of those kind of, like, gray areas.
Yeah. With this band, it's kind of like Queens of the Stone Age. Like, how do you describe them? Well, Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah, you just say Queens of the Stone Age, and most people go, oh, yeah, it's that quirky band that I can't quite describe, but I know I really like a lot of their songs. So as for the long hiatus, it was due to a number of things. In fact, I believe the music for this was actually recorded about 2 years ago, but pretty much from, I would say, 2018 to last year, Josh Homme, the main guy and the only, continuous member of Queens of the Stone Age, pretty much went through a lot of different things. 2018, he lost one of his dear friends, Anthony Bourdain, amazing chef, amazing show. Like, that dude was a super cool dude. He went through a divorce from his then wife, Brody Dahl, and then there was a long, very public custody battle, which he ended up winning. And there was also the death of, other dear friends, such as Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, a frequent collaborator with Queens of the Stone Age, and Taylor Hawkins last year, which was gut-wrenching. Going over that last Foo Fighters was a little tough, honestly.
Yeah, and me being who I am and being a big fan of his, I still don't dive into personal shit. So a lot of this I didn't know. And for me, kind of him just laying it on me, for someone I look up to like that, it hurts me to have someone I look up to like that go through that.
Yeah, and there was even a cancer scare last year, which he actually had a mass removed. So needless to say, he's been through a lot. And a lot of it comes on this album, which is really kind of different for a Queens of the Stone Age album because generally they're a little bit more upbeat, a little bit aloof. There's a lot of drunken swagger to their music. And there definitely still is to the music, but lyrically this is more dark and more personal. And one of the things that I noticed right away is there are no, like, big guests on here. And that is partially due to the subject matter. I believe a lot of the vocals were recorded much later. And as Josh Homme actually said in an interview, when they're dark and personal songs about like really glum stuff, you really don't want to invite your friends over to sing along about my misery. Generally when they invite people on albums, it's, kind of a fun thing. And this album is musically fun, but, lyrically very dark.
And it's got nodes of this underlying dark kind of thing, even with the music that is more upbeat and typical of Queens of the Stone Age. It still has this like off-kilter kind of, they have that drunken swagger thing to them that rock, but it's just off notes. It's off a little bit. Everything just sounds a little bit, but it still maintains that beat.
Yeah, it's pleasantly unsettling. Like
it's good.
It's kind of hard to describe sometimes because I mean, at their core, Queens of the Stone Age is a flat-out rock band and pulling influences as far back as like the 60s on through the 70s and 80s and even some 90s.
Has some punk stuff too. That's what I love when I hear that punk come out.
Just whirling it up and kind of making it their own. And you know, this is definitely a departure from the last album, Villains, which was almost like a love letter to like glam rock and 80s.
I love that album.
It was a fun album. I mean, dude, Feet Don't Fail Me Now. How can you not get stuck in that hook? But this is decidedly less danceable, and actually I would say kind of walks backward in their discography and kind of goes back to like, I would say Era Vulgaris and Lullabies to Paralyze. Like this has a little bit more of that kind of a little bit dirty, a little bit more analog sounding, a little bit more guitar forward.
Yeah, a little more grungy, if you will.
That was something I noticed right away. The opening track, Obscenery, which I think all of the song titles have some like clever pun to them. And once again, you know, that's just Josh being Josh. Like he's just really fucking good at that. But instantly you hear these big, raucous, kind of dirty sounding guitars. And honestly, that was something that was kind of missing on the last two, even though I think Like Clockwork is absolutely amazing. I fucking love that album. The guitars sound a little bit more clean on that one. On this, they sound notably more dirty and a little bit more kind of snarly and more biting. Like, honestly, this is one of their heaviest albums in a while, and like not like metal heavy, but like rock heavy. And it's that weird thing with their riff construction that there's always some note that sounds like a little bit off in it, but that's kind of like a little signature tag because this band knows how to write clever hooks. Like you hear it on Emotion Sickness and Paper Machete. Like those songs just have flat out good hooks. Like they're just powerful rock songs, big choruses, especially the chorus on Emotion Sickness. Like they channel like a little bit of like Steely Dan on that chorus. Like it gets all soft and velvety. And then, you know, Paper Machete is just a flat out rocker. An instant hook right away. It's high energy. It's biting. It's got great fucking, you know, vocals on it, of course, because Josh Homme is a killer vocalist, but it's also just a high energy divorce song. Like, man, yeah, it's very apparent who he's talking about in that one.
And a lot of these, he's wearing his heart on his sleeve with some of these. And Carna Voyeur, that's a good example of emotion. And how we're talking about this kind of like a little bit of a dance toony, but it's really got this dreary, dark kind of feeling to it. And very Bowie, might add. It really comes out in that. And the buildup in that is awesome. It's such a really cool build-up to the end of that song. Yeah,
I like the really cool like synth effects that are on the bass. And when it comes down to like extra, you know, instrumentation on here, strings. There's a lot of strings, and they do wild things in here. Like this song right here, Carnivore, has like some very like lush sounding strings that are just kind of pretty. They're very, you know, alluring.
Yeah, and then in Obscenery, the first song, you have a string break that's very short and out of nowhere, but like he just manages to fit everything together somehow. It's like this hard rocking thing into this orchestra thing and then back in the hard rocking thing.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's one of the coolest transitions on the entire album because the drums actually drop out in that. And then you hear like this sort of like Lawrence Welk sort of like swell.
Almost,
like, oh, wow, this is very pretty.
Kind of nice, and then boom, right back into it.
Yeah, right into like a riffy, just, you know, kind of bridge.
And Negative Space, speaking about rocking and groove and stuff, man, they really dig hard into the groove in this. And there's that stutter step thing on the drums, which kind of overlays the verse because it's kind of longer in that first segment. So where you would normally have a transition after the 4 bars, it's kind of this real hip-hoppy kind of stutter step on the drums. It really adds to the quirkiness of it, and I dig the hip-hop kind of feel to that a little bit.
Yeah, there's like a weird swing to a lot of these drums. And I like a lot of these drum patterns. Like, I mean, Obscenery right away, Negative Space. Even Emotion Sickness has like kind of a fun off-time rhythm. And the guitar layering. I've always been kind of fascinated in how they do that, especially in their more recent albums. They've been really cool about these like weird sort of like minimalistic broken down riffs where they have some strange atmosphere behind it. Like that's big on Negative Space. You have like this almost sort of like palm muted sort of like funky thing on the It's really faint, but you can make it out, and it kind of contributes to, again, that strange kind of off kilter atmosphere. But that fun broken down riff is, I don't know, just like sort of an instant little hook there.
In particular, Negative Space, what I really enjoy about his music and the way he writes is this is the soundscape of chaotic uncertainty in life. And this is the way that sounds to me, with maintaining a hook and a feel and a dance and a groove and these big hits in there. And it's like those big hits, he's almost like punching a wall to me. I hear those notes at the end of the chorus, those ba ba ba, those hits. But I love the way he's able to do that and create the soundscape of what he's talking about. It's very rare in music.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like, all right, when I think of Josh Homme, like, he's just got this confidence, this swagger. Like, I mean, I've heard him called, you know, like Ginger Elvis. You know, and it kind of works to a degree. But, you know, on this album, he feels decidedly more vulnerable, and that is, you know, totally understandable given what he's been through and given what he's poured into these lyrics, too. That is such an interesting change. Like, it's way more moody in a different way. Like, it doesn't feel like as aloof and carefree at points, even though sometimes the music is. Like, Time and Place. First off, I love how this song builds up with the minimalist little 1-2 notes. Like, okay.
It's a 3-note pattern that repeats, yeah.
And then it comes in on the offbeat, and you're like, wait a minute, I was gearing up for something completely different.
It's like the off-up groove. It's like, ooh, ooh.
And how it works into this, like, 2 guitar kind of playing back and forth. Like, the bass and drums just carry this. Mm-hmm. It's this sort of, like, 80s new wave, or, like, really early new wave. Like, you know, The Cars, that self-titled album, like, very much in that vein. Talking Heads, The Romantics, stuff like that. And you listen to the lyrics and it sounds like he just wants to fucking fight someone because he's absolutely miserable. But generally, like, when I hear this, I think, you know, upbeat, more positive. Like, yeah, it's a good cruising song. And hearing this contrast, this album, I think is a really cool thing that kind of draws me in on this one.
And that was cool because he time and place, just the words, what he's talking about. And in the music, there's parts of the music that are out of time and place. And I'm like, man, this guy's firing on a different level. He really is.
It's Queen's Inception.
It's really like, in the music, he's still able to tie everything together. And it's like, some things in life are off, but he still has his shit together, you know?
I mean, honestly, as soon as I hear the bass and drums come in, the first thing I thought of was Love Shack by B-52s. Except, you know, this is like Unloved Shack, I guess. It's, you know, again, darker, more moody. But where darker and more moody really work, like both musically and like lyrically, is the song Sicily. Sicily is this kind of unsuspectingly huge song because it starts off very minimalistically, like it's got this little tap and, you know, snap sort of rhythm. Everything kind of builds slowly, and then when it explodes into giant riffs and these almost like Middle Eastern, like epic strings. Like, you almost feel like you were transported to the set of a Mummy movie halfway through it.
Mm-hmm. And I got the vibe, if you took Homme's lyrics out of it, like, this is something I would hear Les Claypool. I could totally hear Les Claypool do. And this is a good example, too, of him building up some of these things and being able to kind of like suck the middle out of the music and then introduce something to you that has already been there that you didn't know, and it fits. And what I mean by that is, like, he'll kind of have this wispy, airy thing going on with this underlying hard rhythm, usually upbeat. And then he manages to take the middle out of the music and bring that rhythm up while dropping the wispiness. And now you've totally changed the dynamic of the song, and it sounds different, but it's still comfortable and the same because it's already been there and you just didn't hear it. And he'll do that the opposite way too, whereas if it's a hard rhythm, he'll drop that out and then bring up the wispiness into something else.
Oh, the dynamic swells.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's super impressive.
And I would say, like, all of it is on display on the last track. Straight jacket fitting. Yeah. 9 minutes of just, well, I mean, like, honestly, kind of everything that Queens is about.
And in his life, too. But, man, it goes from, like, Talking Heads into Clutch and ZZ Top, and then, like, Queens of the Stone Age and different eras. And then while he's talking about everything, he's just laying everything out for you. And, like, hey, this is me. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through. This is how I see things. And he's being really honest with us all. And I, as a fan, really, like, appreciate that.
And musically, like, it takes all the cool dynamics both in terms of what he's talking about. Like, when it's more urgent and biting, there's a section here that really sounds like, you know, Roadhouse Blues by the Doors.
Yeah.
And he kind of has, like, a more aggressive delivery, just sort of talking about, like, like cleverly nihilistic things, like, yeah, it's the end of the world, but you know what, you can only take care of you, and you know, yeah, it's weird out there, but you know, keep trucking, you know, that's what I'm gonna do. But you also have, like, I think before that is this big dropout where it's just strings and layered vocals, and it's the most lush, pretty thing, and then it kind of gets down in the grit and dirt and gets riffy and, you know, kind of bluesy again. And there's a repeating hook all throughout it, and it's just an absolutely wild, very cathartic song.
And it really kind of ties everything. It's kind of like a good bookend to like Queens at this point. Really, for me, I thought, and it even sends you off in this acoustic thing that reminds you straight Caius. You know? And
all the way back.
It was awesome.
As far as like negatives on here, I do think there are a couple of songs that, you know, dragged or didn't necessarily fit as well. Made to Parade, well, I think it's fun. It's kind of quirky. It's kind of like a, I don't know, like a clunky but heavier Beatles song. Like, it's got some like kind of Britpop sort of, you know, vocal flourishes and sort of like a weird marching band sort of feel. Like, it does kind of feel like a parade, but much like a lot of parades, after a while, like, man, is this thing fucking over yet? It hangs out a little bit too long. And the song What the Peephole Say, not people, it's Peephole because Josh Homme is clever. It's cool. It has kind of like a, you know, almost kind of like Stooges-like sort of like punky swagger, but also still a little bit of that new wave. I don't think it completely lands. I love the, you know, back half where they kind of get down to this like almost ballroom blitz sort of like bridge. Like, it's got a good high energy feel to it, but overall, like, it didn't grab me as much as other songs. But man, most of these really grabbed me. In fact, like, I like Villains, but I think I like this one better because, I don't know, it kind of goes back again. Like, it goes back to familiar territory. And that familiarity, I think, is partially due to the fact that, you know, where all their albums so far have been kind of like moving forward and trying different things, getting a little bit more experimental. This one goes back. And you know what? It's kind of comforting. It's like kind of coming back home. Not all the way home, because this is still kind of like weird and strange, and it's definitely not like the first album, even though I do think Paper Machete has like a little bit of like a if only sort of note in there, which that was probably the first song that people really fell in love with by Queens of the Stone Age. But it's all comforting and cathartic, and, you know, like, the mixed emotions about this are good because, again, it's emotionally very just, you know, on the sleeve. Like, you know, you can pretty much, you know, tell exactly what he's talking about in this, but at the same time, the music is, again, welcoming. Like, this is for fans that go all the way back in their career and still love all the new stuff too. This is just kind of an all-encompassing listen. So overall, I'm gonna give this 4 stars. This is awesome. Not that I'm actually surprised there, because I love every album by Queens of the Stone Age. I think they're all kind of delightfully weird and fun and riffy, and, you know, that's just what Queens of the Stone Age does. But this one is a little bit different with that sort of emotional vulnerability to it. Like, that adds like a dimension that, again, has really not been there that much. And it kind of makes these songs like a little bit deeper in a way. I think the cool experimentation with really like awesome strings in here, like, those add a lot to the songs. But I like the fact that sort of that rawness and riffiness is back. Like, Paper Machete, holy shit, what a fucking catchy song. And it kind of just captures that old school Queens of the Stone Age bite. Like, that whole like middle finger and like, yeah, these guitars are loud, so fucking what. While this is a dark album in terms of all the subject matter, it's a fucking fun album. Like, there are so many just earworms all over the place, and they are like unique earworms. They are Queens of the Stone Age earworms, and those guys kind of write just, again, their own thing. Like, they really kind of have just their own sound, and I absolutely love it once again. So yeah, if you're a big Queens of the Stone Age fan, and oh God, I don't even know what the fuck else to compare this to. Like, I don't know, if you just like rock music, if you like that shit, get this. It's fucking awesome.
No subgenres needed.
Yeah.
These guys, just if you like rock music, for sure. Which is, I love this album. I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. Even one of your negatives, Made to Parade, yeah, it kind of drags a little bit. But I heard that was the first point I was like, oh, Josh Homme and St. Vincent should totally write an album that's, oh my God, that would be fucking killer. And we're like, yeah, have they done anything? So we didn't look it up, but hopefully they have, and I'll look it up later. But man, I kind of dug that song, so there wasn't a lot of negatives I had. What the Peephole say, I enjoyed that punk influence. I really dig when that comes out because, man, he does it so damn well. The other parts of that song didn't hit for me as well as the other ones. And one of the other kind of parts that I guess didn't grab onto me as well as like Emotion Sickness. The rhythm in the verse is hooky, but it wasn't like my favorite thing. And it was more or less at that point I had to write some negatives, and it's just that's not my favorite. That's the only negative, that particular part. But the chorus has kind of like a little bit of a Ween vibe to it. I kind of enjoyed that. They play with that octave thing on the pedal, on the guitar a little bit. And
it's like Electric Light Orchestra, except, bad mescaline got mixed in there.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of negatives about this. All the songs, and from a fan, I really appreciate the fact that he's just willing to like, hey, this is how I feel about things right now, and I'm not trying to hide anything from you guys, and I'm going to be open about it, and I'm going to. He gave us what I wanted. I wanted a Queens of the Stone Age album. This is a culmination of Queens of the Stone Age at this point for me, and it's a great album, and they don't have a bad album for me. And,
they don't.
Yeah, this is a definite 4.5 out of 5 for me, for sure.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there is a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our store is there, as well as our Patreon link. We will be loading up on shirts. We have a design, and believe me, once we get some shirts out, we'll probably do a video showing off the shirts once we get them, because they're a cool fucking design, and I really want to show them off, and I don't know.
We'll give away. We'll give one away.
We'll do a giveaway.
Yeah.
But right now, we actually have a separate giveaway going on for when we eventually hit 15,000 subscribers, which we are almost within just 100 of them. So, yeah, all you got to do is comment in the video link down below when you are entered. And the giveaway, of course, is now a stack of 11 CDs. And I want to find them at home. So once we get to 15,000 subscribers, I will do a little comment randomizer and announce it right here. And we'll all celebrate, because whoever won will get all those cool fucking CDs. And we will be at 15,000 subscribers, which is just absolutely insane for what we do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it has been an amazing fucking ride doing this. Looking forward to loading you guys with an absurd amount of content, because... well, there's an absurd amount of metal out there I want to talk about. That's pretty much it. But yeah, I love doing this, and you guys are
awesome.
Like, yeah, and the main reason that drives us. It's fucking incredible. Thank you all so much. And once again, we will catch you later.